Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Discourse for today, October 27th, 2023, spooky time. I'm your host, Tristan, and I'm your host, Tristan, and I don't know how long I can keep this mask on. I'm Tristan, the person who runs Step Back at stepbackhistory.com. I'm also the at nebula.tv/stepback. I'm also the host of the podcast It's Probably Not Aliens, found at probsnotaliens.com. I stream on Fridays at noon, which you are watching right now. If you want to support my work financially, you could go to nebula.tv/stepback or patreon.com/stepbackhistory and sign up. Now I get why Bane sounds the way he does. And, or you can send super chats. Super chats are always welcome and appreciated, but of course, never necessary. Content is always as free as I can make it, while still paying the biz. My latest video is on how the media is manipulated. Okay, I can't do this. It's too ridiculous. I can't. It's like... lacking oxygen. There was an attempt. Okay. My latest video is called How the 1% Manipulates You. It's a whole thing about media manipulation and psyops and all of those kinds of things. Really good video, one I'm very proud of, and one you should check out. My next video, which should be coming out next week, inshallah, is on the JFK assassination. So have fun with that. What else did I mention? And if you're in the Chicago area, I'm doing a It's Probably Not Aliens fan meetup at the bar. What's the bar name? The bar name is... It's one that I know as a person who's going to be there. I literally planned this trip. One sec. I'm just going to grab it real quick. You never know when someone actually might make it. So it's going to be on November 4th. It's going to be at the bar Replay. That's located in Lincoln Park in Chicago. Starts at 5 p.m. It's a 21 plus venue. So yeah, if you want to be there for that, that is the place to be. Yeah. You can also submit questions for this and future streams at the link that is right here. And I will put I'll put another link there in the chat that you can then go to do that, to set yourself in on that. And yeah, I think that's the main things. Also, if this is your first time watching the stream, please make yourself known in the chat. Please say hi, because we have a really awesome chat community, and it would be great to have one more. So please say hello if this is your first time watching. Yeah. Any Ontario-based meetups happening? Not that I know of at the moment. Nothing in the works, anyway. So, let's see. With all that being said, all we've got left is wins. So, please, everybody, share us your wins. This is a thing we do on this stream. We go into some pretty tough subjects on this show. So one of the things that I always like to do is start the show off by having us all celebrate our wins, big and small, so we can all high five each other and talk about how things aren't all awful. We are surviving. We are thriving. So some of us, or at least what's it called? At least we're all surviving. We made it through another week, but also sometimes we get small victories. So let's celebrate those together. Let's see. Let me see if I can think of my own. This week has been intense for Tristan and Tristan Land, because I am extremely far behind on my next video. We are, because of all the stuff with the podcast. October will probably be the month that I have poured the most hours into podcast stuff, because I bunch of things. But yeah, and that includes the fact that November I'm going to be leaving for like 4 days to go on a podcast related trip. So I've been working really, really hard the last month on trying to get the podcast, or keep the podcast running while also getting videos made. And I've survived it rather well. The next video, I have a very tentative plan where if nothing goes wrong, then I'll be okay. So that's a win. I might still be able to pull it all together. And my next video is one I'm pretty excited about. I have some new plans that are coming down the pike in the near-term future when I get back from the US next week. That involve me starting to make shorts on a regular basis and also considering starting a Substack. So all those things are going to be in your face when they are ready. And also I was on 4 podcasts this week. I recorded 2 episodes of It's Probably Not Aliens this week, and I was a guest on 2 other podcasts this week. So that was also a lot. But I'm making it through, and this weekend is Halloween, and we're going to have a whole lot of fun. So I'm excited for all of that. What else are things to be excited about? We did. This is a very inside thing, but our D&D campaign ended last week. We finished it, the podcast. We finished it the like 2-year campaign last week. We killed Strahd, spoiler alert. And then this next week, we're starting a new campaign where I am running it, and we are switching officially to fucking Pathfinder after a very long, process of me, trying to push everyone to do it. And so that seems to be actually happening starting next week. And, in the meantime, this week we played a sort of Halloween themed game that is part of a campaign that we lovingly call Spooky Town that Matt/Mildred/Thought Slime runs, and it is extremely funny and extremely good. And so we hadn't played it in like several years, and so we finally had a session, and we're also planning on doing 1 session a month where we let Matt run Spooky Town for once a month, because it's very interesting. It's very entertaining. Where all of the players play as themselves in a sort of urban fantasy version of Toronto that I said is a mix of dark fantasy, urban fantasy, cosmic horror, and sort of a Rick and Morty type bend to it as well. So that where we all are basically dealing with the fallout that that Matt was secretly a necromancer who has a bunch of magical abilities and stuff to deal with. And so that's like a fun thing. So that's, yeah. And I guess my win is next week I'm going on a short trip, which will be nice. All right, let's see some wins. All right. Pam had a final meeting with their psychologist this week. She agreed that I'm not nearly at my full potential, and that I have a lot of talents that I can utilize and develop. That is some pretty sweet stuff. That is room to grow is good indeed. Dazia, their win is that they started their internship this week at the village office, and it's been nice working. It's only 3 hours each day, and have actually been helpful finding some record that they needed. Awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. Finally able to schedule your flu/COVID booster pack for 3:30 today. Nice. I still got to get on that. Yeah, the boosters. I can't remember if the flu shot/COVID boosters are showing up yet, but I want to get it as soon as I can. Stealth Intel got a job after being laid off for 4 months. Congratulations. Welcome back to the workforce. If you call what I do working. Tarbox made a live stream panel twice. LOL twice at my joke. Oh, excellent. And you had an interview for a promotion next week. That's awesome. C-Myth dreams of opening up a network of community-owned, worker-directed cafes and community centers where meetups can happen. Call them Cafe Libre. Zia's Miss W for the week is that they got to go to a professional recording studio to make a demo for their new song, A New North Star, and a kind of folk punk type anthem. That's pretty cool. I like punk and folk. I'm curious what those two taste together. Congratulations on finishing your campaign. We finished our campaign that we had been playing since 2014 in August. We made it to level 20 and saved the world. Yeah. I'm very happy to be able to put together a group like this, because this group has been together now since 2018. And we have now finished 2 campaigns in D&D. One was a 1 to 20 campaign, and the other one was a 1 to 10 campaign, which is Curse of Strahd. But now we're doing a Pathfinder game set in a Wild West / Maroon community that is between 2 like rival empires in a huge swamp, and the citizens of the city are made up of all of the ancestries that people consider monsters or first level opponents. So it is a town made up of goblins and orcs and kobolds and gnolls, and they are trying to create an existence separate from lives of violence that they experience outside. And they and that's like the sort of shtick, and it's got themes to do with multiculturalism and generational like culture stuff. It's got stuff to do with the sort of inversion of the monster hero dynamic. It's got some ancient ruins. It's got everything, and the party, the new group is pretty fun. We've got I'm pretty excited to say that like one of the guys who joined our campaign midway through during Curse of Strahd, who kind of didn't really like, he was just kind of like, oh, I like soup. That was his character. And then with the second character, he's like he had never role played before, and he was light on it during Curse of Strahd. Now he's like, I belong to this tribe. I have this whole arc that I want to go through, and like all this really cool stuff. Like he's really interested in it. So I think that's also OW for me. Yeah. And God, what else is there? Sorry. Yeah. We've got a thing. Can you share a link to your song for later? Sure. Am I allowed to play it on the stream? Just once. I'll only play it once. I'm not going to like steal it from my background music forever or anything like that. The group though is going to be made up of 5 players. We've got 2 orcs or 1 here. Okay, listen to how cool the storylines are going to play out for this. So we've got 1 orc who is a monk who came from a clan of like sort of more spiritually inclined martial arts focused orcs that have to deal with the fact that they sort of have a reputation for being aloof among the orcs, but then also the character is like one of the first people of this clan born in the city and has to like navigate that kind of like second generation cultural heritage thing. So that's super fun. And then we've got a half orc who is like, she's half human and lives amongst the orcs, but like kind of deals with the issues of being mixed race, but also trying to she's also second generation, but is trying to lean into the identity almost out of like a sense of like inferiority. So she tries to be like the most orky orc that she can be, which might lead to some toxic behavior down the line, because there's a whole thing where the second generation have like been raised by this culture that has its roots in like being nomads and living rather violent lifestyles, and they live rather peaceful lifestyles in a settled society, but some of them are like nostalgic for this culture that they don't actually know about and don't appreciate the sort of reason why their parents might have abandoned that lifestyle. And then a goblin cleric to a god of monsters, a goddess of monsters, and she is being played by Matt, and is going to like basically think she's better than everyone else and has to overcome that, and also has sort of a reticent fear and apprehension about the dangers of adventuring. So we'll go with that. That'll be fun. And then we've got two people who are from cultures that live outside of the town, but are like indigenous societies that have a friendly relationship with the town. One is a leshy, which is sort of like a plant person, and the other is a bullywug, which is sort of like a frog person. And the whole storyline is that the group of them grew up together, and they're all sort of, when the campaign starts, they're all sort of coming of age. They're all like entering adulthood in their various different ways. And I don't know what I'm going to do next for the first adventure. I have like a vague idea because I want to do something Day of the Dead themed, because our first session's on November 1st, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet. It does sound very fun. I'm very excited about it. Your W is working on a revolutionary game of Blades in the Dark that had a bit of creativity in an otherwise bleak week. Nice. Yeah, Blades in the Dark is super fun. I have another group that meets in person that played Blades in the Dark for like a year. And right now we're playing D&D, but I think that after D&D is over, we're probably going to play Blades in the Dark again. And it's pretty fun. It's pretty good. Last Saturday, Gruel jogged 5 miles continuously for the first time in 10 years. Been generally productive and being healthy this year. That's awesome. That is so good. I'm also on a sort of like health and fitness journey. And so I know how much that can be very rewarding when you succeed. Pim went swimming this week. Nice. Swimming is like one of the best exercises you can get. It's resistance and cardio. Starbucks has had a homebrew that's been wanting to throw down for a couple years now, patiently waiting for their chance. Yeah, I have some things like that. I have a Star Trek campaign that I have been waiting for a receptive group for years, and I don't know how I would find a TTRPG group that's made of Star Trek nerds, but I would like to. And then I would have to decide whether to use the Modifius 2D20 Star Trek Adventures rule set or do something like Fate, because I think Fate is really fun for Star Trek stuff. But I haven't read the Modifius Star Trek Adventures game, so maybe there's something really good about that too. Yeah. Keep at it. Your health is truly rewarding. Yeah. What's it called? I was like a little dismayed because my weight had been plateauing for several months, but then I put myself in a suit to go to a wedding last week or 2 weeks ago. And, I put on a suit that I had fitted in, July for Scott's wedding. And when I put it on, it was all baggy. So it shows that like, while my weight hasn't changed, the weightlifting and creatine has definitely contributed to that weight being more dense and more muscle at this point. Why not use that setting for that space opera you're working on for an RPG? Maybe. I definitely did a bunch of work on that this week too. I was working on a timeline to sort of to flesh it out. That might be a cool idea to do. I really want to actually write something in it first before I open it up like that. Which I'm excited for. Getting dad strong. Yeah. Like, doesn't really translate because I'm still, oh, there you go. There's some tone and definition there. Yeah. But yeah, I kind of have an idea for what I'm going to do for depending upon, how long I keep with it. But with that, that sort of space opera media project. The idea is that I would release them as how do I explain it? Because I kind of want the feeling of it to be like a movie / TV franchise, but just like as a thing you read, which means that like one of the things I want to do is like, instead of like a season of TV, what I would do is I would release a short story anthology of like maybe like 20 or so short stories, and that each of those short stories would have like, there would be like ongoing character development elements and stuff, but every short story would have its own sort of plot of the episode type thing, like a Star Trek thing. And then maybe when I want to make like the movie or whatever, I would make like a novel. Theoretically. Who knows? Can we talk about class war or dialectics or something? Maybe sometime. We got it. What's it called? This stuff is like, life is heavy. So it's good to have a little bit of reprieve from constant dismal bullshit. It's another one in my list of like things that I've had to deal with lately where I don't know how to deal with like comedy. I don't know. Okay. I get like random comments sometimes that are like, this is, how the hell is that DRM free? I disagree. Okay. But like, okay. Reset. I got a comment last, like yesterday, I want to say, that was like a comment I hadn't gotten in a long time, which was like, why, like, can you please stop trying to be entertaining? Why do these videos have to be entertaining? I just want you to stand in front of a camera and spout facts at me until the video is over. And then I get like this one, like, can we stop having fun and just talk about class war or something? Like, I don't understand the psychology of what leads people to be like, I wish that your stuff was less fun. Or maybe it was just a comment about the fact that I'm just not very funny or entertaining. But anyway. The Dutch word for solitaire. Nice. We could talk about... yeah. Either way. My most fun / funny video is arguably my most popular. My 9/11 video. My two most popular videos are my video on September 11th attacks and my video on what's it called? About what North America or what the Americas looked like pre-colonization. The video where I smash or pass on famous historical figures was one that I very much liked, but it didn't do super well. But also, it could be like the fact that they would have done well, but like every YouTuber I know is reporting like a sort of lull in views as of late. Don't really know why. Nobody's really been able to get a good explanation, but it seems like across the board, everybody is seeing a depression in views. So, let's see how that goes. Your W this week is that you finally signed up for health insurance at your new employer. Didn't just put it off until I was out of eligibility. Well, there you go. The president's was amazing. Yeah, my hope is that those videos are like, they're solid enough that someday they'll come back. Like that they'll find their audience and they will do well. Because yeah, I feel like I have talked to, and I don't know, because it also could be like, you know, randos too that don't have the that don't have the same like they're more wanting to pump me up than give me the truth. But I've had a handful of people say that my more recent videos have been some of my best work, but they just haven't been performing very well, probably because they're just not I don't know, something's just not clicking with algorithm or whatever. It's part of why I'm trying some new stuff like shorts and with and Substack, because one of the things that I think when we looked at my data, one of the things that kind of came out of my analytics is that I make videos that are very appealing to my core audience that keep coming back for every video, but I'm not really doing that much to get people who are outside of that. So like my next few videos are going to be focused on not only appealing to the core Step Back audience, which is always on my mind, but to try and also entice people coming to the channel from other places to start to find Step Back. I need to like find myself in new spaces. Like my next video, I specifically sort of made in my mind to appeal to what I'm calling the conspiracy curious skeptic, which is a person who thinks conspiracy content is who thinks that conspiracy theory content is entertaining but doesn't believe it. Apparently that's the juice that's making It's Probably Not Aliens work so well. So I'm hoping that I can, shift that over to Step Back and get some more juice out of that. You're watching less on YouTube and more on Nebula. Yeah, that is another thing too. That is a big deal. Is that Nebula very recently, because they're updating. They have like a back end web page that they've been like working on, and they finally gave us a little bit of analytics, and it looks like people are actually watching my stuff on Nebula, and I didn't know that before. I had no clue how well I was doing on Nebula, but it seems like, number goes up. It seems to be doing pretty well. So Nebula seems to like me. I currently have almost 6,000 subscribers on Nebula, so the ability to download videos does a lot. Yeah. You can download videos on YouTube too if you have YouTube Premium, but yeah, the fact that Nebula has it is pretty great. I legit think your more modern videos are really good, though. Keep in mind that algorithm is not reflective of quality. You made a shitpost video in 10 minutes. Yeah, everybody I know, like it's almost like a truism with YouTubers that like your most successful video are the ones that you put the least effort into. And that's just, part of the game. And so I'm trying to do some stuff with like my next video where I'm trying to make my videos a little bit shorter. My current plan, I know I talk way too much about meta shit, but my current plan is that my future videos, I'm going to keep to around half an hour, but then like once a quarter, so maybe like every 3 videos or so, I'm going to make one that's about an hour long, and I'll just be working on it in the background through the other months. So like at the moment, I have a video, I have the JFK video that's coming out next week, inshallah. But then I have also my my January video that I'm working on right now, which is about it's tentatively titled "The Activist's Guide to Israel-Palestine," and it's going to be about an hour long, and I'm going to be teaming up with one of my friends who is a journalist who is extremely knowledgeable about Israel-Palestine, and I think that it's going to be a really good collaboration. So hopefully my next project will, and then December, I think I haven't really seen what the December poll is looking like yet. I'll have to take a look at the Weird Bean website that used to be called Patreon. But yeah, this is like the guy I'm working with, my friend Jeremy. He has been a journalist now for like almost a decade, and he is a like lifelong Palestinian rights activist, and he has like been to Gaza City and stuff like as part of that effort. So he is like, he knows a lot more than I do, that's for sure. And so I'm excited to have him to work with him on a project, so that's exciting. And yeah, I'm trying to think what else we've got. Geez, so many things. Looks like December is going to be a video about land back, which will be pretty good too. How does Nebula's pay structure work for creators? Is it similar to YouTube, or do they use a completely different system for determining what creators earn from the platform? It's similar to YouTube in the sense that essentially, like, there's a pool, like it's similar to YouTube in like the way that it's distributed, where there's like a pool of money that is made up of that is like the amount of money that gets paid out to all creators, and that's divvied up based on what percentage of the total amount of hours being watched on Nebula were made up with your videos. So like that, so that's a pretty, I feel like that's a pretty fair way to do it. Plus then there's like a little bit that's just based on like a sort of revenue, like a sort of profit sharing that happens with everyone, because we're all like kind of partially owners, that kind of thing. So those two things are the main things that do it. I will say though that the ratios are way higher. Like one watch hour on YouTube is worth way less than one watch hour on Patreon or on Nebula. So like Nebula, like every view means a lot more is what I'm trying to say. Land back sounds like an interesting topic. Thank you. Yeah. Land back is, the reason I want to talk about land back is because it's one of those things that certain other content creators have unfairly maligned, and mostly because they don't understand what it was, because they are a content creator that makes 4-hour-long videos because they stream like every single day, and instead of doing research and understanding the topics they talk about, they have opinions without any thought behind them based on their general vibe and reading the first paragraph of a Wikipedia article. So unfortunately, the dominant narrative in a lot of leftist spaces about what land back means is dominated by one asshole who doesn't understand anything that he actually talks about. So I'm going to come in and explain what land back means. And because the kind of people who listen to certain content creators on what land back means, they probably need a like white man to tell them the same information, or else they won't take it seriously. So that's the plan. And who knows, it might be a very good setup for the fact that settler colonialism is a pretty important subject to understand, say, in our modern day and age for some reason. So yeah, it'll be a thing. Oh, the other thing about Nebula's pay structure too is that there's also, if you sign up to Nebula via like we all get, like every Nebula creator has like a link. Like mine is nebula.tv/stepback. And if you go to that link, or if you go to like a link that has like the sort of, there's like a little reference codey thing. If you sign up for Nebula using that link, then as long as you stay a member of Nebula, a portion of your membership goes towards that creator. So there's that too. Canadian politic question. Yes, Dazia. Right now the Liberals are tanking in the polls. Why hasn't Trudeau resigned, but in a way that allows the Liberals to pick a new leader without a new federal election? A couple reasons. One, I think the Liberals are pretty convinced that they can ride this out. At the moment, they last won an election in 2021, and they have a coalition government with the NDP. And the NDP know that if an election is called right now, that the Conservatives will likely win, and Pierre Poilievre is not exactly is not an upgrade from Justin Trudeau, so they're not likely to break rank anytime soon. So that means that they don't have to stand for election until 2025. So they probably think that they can turn this stuff around, especially because they're starting to put out a few policies to do some things about the myriad crises that have caused their numbers to sink in the polls. Specifically, they are, I don't know what their exact rules are, but they're trying to control the inflating food prices. I don't know exactly how they're doing that. It sounded like they were just going to ask the grocery stores to pretty please stop charging so much money for food. The second thing is that they are putting a freeze on, like, they're making an exemption for the next 3 years on carbon tax for home heating. So because as we're heading into winter, like a lot of houses that are like, you know, that are going to heat themselves, especially houses like mine and a lot of houses in Ontario that use natural gas heating are, we're going to get dinged pretty hard with taxes. So they turned that off for 3 years. Which I don't know if I liked that idea, but I guess, whatever, that's a thing. And they even today or earlier this week, they even talked about how, some part of the government is currently doing an exploratory committee of implementing a federal basic income program. So that could also be a thing in the future. That could be a thing that the Liberals could use to get themselves a juice in the polls. They're trying to do things to turn things around for them, and they have a few years to work it out. And Justin Trudeau would be able to repair the status. Also, I think he just has very strong control over the party. Like, the party's reticent to get rid of him, even though I think his deputy prime minister is Chrystia Freeland is like so ready to overthrow him. Like, she is so ready to be the next leader of the party. So I don't know how long he's going to keep going. He's been prime minister for a while now, but like, he's been prime minister since 2015. So he's been prime minister for like 8 years. So like for it, like next election would, like, if he wins the next election and rolls for another 4 years, I think that puts him like in line with like some of the longest running prime ministers in Canadian history. But we'll see. Because like prime ministers in like stable times of Canadian government tend to last for like a decade or so. So we'll see. We'll see what comes out. That didn't work out so well for them in Ontario, and now we're stuck in the less goofy Ford brother. Yeah, that is true. Does the Bloc Québécois have a stance on making coalitions or agreements with the party, or do they forbid that stuff in a case where they could give either party government? They've played ball before. The Bloc Québécois is a weird political party that they tend to like we don't do like coalition governments, but they do align on issues that come up in federal politics if it would benefit Quebec in a certain way. So they do play ball on those issues from time to time. Just like and yeah, so like it could happen. An FBI program, sorry, a UBI program. Is that what I was trying? Yeah. The basic income would be, especially because like the NDP publicly shat its own pants this week in Ontario. So I'm not going to vote Liberal, but I'm also not super jazzed to vote NDP at the moment. So I don't know what the next election is going to look like. So that's that. Trudeau's been prime minister since 2015. So he's been prime minister for about 8 years. The story this week is that the Ontario government, the Ontario NDP party, so not the federal party, but the provincial party, kicked out of the NDP caucus a MPP by the name of Sarah Jama, who represents Hamilton Centre, because she called for a ceasefire in Israel. And they basically kicked her out of the party for doing that because the Conservatives like whipped up this whole like PR campaign against her, and the new leader, Merritt Stiles, I guess, doesn't have the courage of conviction, and so yeah, it fucking sucked. But yeah, as far as like Justin Trudeau staying leader of the Liberal Party, I think that he'll probably stay leader until he loses an election. And he may lose the election in 2025. Who knows? If there was an election held today, he would lose. But I don't know, like, people's memories are very short. So who knows what like 2025 will look like. And also there are a lot of people in like the suburbs who look at someone like Pierre Poilievre and think, no, thank you very much. Because like the conservatives have been getting on this like, conservative, like sort of like social conservative bullshit that like a lot of times when the conservatives kind of go down this route, people in like the 905 tend to shy away from them. Like our conservatives only really tend to win elections when they go more centrist. And that isn't the case at the moment. Because keep in mind that like the conservative support is extremely, because of like rep by pop, right? Like, the problem is that we have like a first past the post system. And the thing is that like the conservatives always look like they're going to win because they do by raw numbers get more votes. They have in the last 2 elections. But what they do is they get like 80% in like Alberta. Like they get like 80% in seats in Alberta and then lose in like, 3-way races here in like the 905 because they like so like there's sort of like an inflated thing where like conservatives are very popular in certain parts of the country and they're more like they have to like play more ball politically in places like where we are now. And unfortunately what happens is that their base, the majority of their base that's like out in like Alberta and stuff like that, they keep pushing them more and more to the right. And whenever they do that, it turns off people in like the 905 and they end up losing elections. And that always kind of causes their problem. And yet, despite that, he's still ahead in the polls at the moment, mostly because like the liberals are taking the brunt of all of the myriad economic crises we're going through because we have very high interest rates right now. Like the Bank of Canada jacked up interest rates by like a huge percentage. So now like there are people on variable rate mortgages right now who are not only have interest rates gone up, but also house prices have gone down. So people are finding themselves paying more and more on their mortgage with their house that's being worth less and less. And so many people are pissed off at the government because what they're seeing is their cost of living going way up and they're not getting anything for it because food is getting expensive. Mortgages are getting expensive. House prices are going down. So your investment in your house is going to mean less and less. Some people who have variable rate but fixed payment mortgages literally can't pay down their principal. So they are just paying on an interest loan that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, which like we're staring on the barrel of like Tokyo style 100-year mortgages. And it's just like absolutely fucking crazy. And it's just not going to work out it's just not sustainable. But like there are easy ways to fix that. Like, yeah, pauses on the carbon tax, which is not great because we need to, do something about carbon, but also carbon taxes are not exactly a stellar solution for fixing the fact that we're a horrible climate, like a horrible carbon emitter. But it's the market-based solution. So that's what they went with. But either way, a carbon tax just, disproportionately affects people who are just barely getting by. And the Conservatives have been very successful because the Conservative Party in Canada is very, very primarily focused on being a anti-environment party. Like their goal, the Conservative project in Canada is to destroy the planet as fast as humanly possible. And so they have done a lot of their messaging and it has been fairly effective that like the reason everything's so expensive is because of the gosh dang carbon tax. And so people are buying into that shit. When it's like, it's not the carbon tax. It's the fact that like grocery store people realized they could just say inflation and raise prices. And all of the, because of how Canada works, all of the companies that aren't like small mom and pop businesses, basically there's only like a handful of them and they all act like cartels. So all of the grocery store owners realize that they don't have to lower prices. They can just keep raising prices, and because people have to buy food, it's inelastic demand. So they just charge more, and then they just make more money. And like that's their plan, is to just keep making more money off of charging more for food. And so that has made people's cost of living go way, way up. Grocery bills are insane right now. And things like the increased mortgage, what's it called? The increased interest rate means that it's harder to start a business, it's harder to loan out money, or at least it's more expensive to take out loans. And mortgages, which means that everyone's mortgage payments are due to shoot up. And when things are getting more expensive, but life isn't getting better, and when that happens, when your cost of living goes up and your life is getting worse, you tend to blame whoever's in power, and that's the liberals at the moment. Aren't housing prices like the highest in the world? Yes. So basically, here's like the sort of like kind of bear trap that Canada is stuck in. So after the 2008 recession, many countries around the world, many countries around the West, actually pretty much most countries around the world needed to do something to jumpstart the economy, because basically like trillions of dollars of assets just turned out to be absolutely non-existent. Like there was a bunch of money that we thought existed on paper, but it didn't exist in reality. And so a fuckload of money just like left the economy overnight. That resulted in like lots of a lot less money to go around. And when there's less money to go around, people who invest in the kind of projects that cause a capitalist economy to grow started becoming more sheepish and stopped investing in new projects and started cutting back on these things. And it leads to like a downward spiral. That's basically what a depression is. In order to avoid that, what many governments did is they adjusted their interest rates to extremely low levels. So like people could borrow money for almost free. And that resulted in like normally really low interest rates by that kind of thinking is considered unwise, because what you do is you overheat the economy. It makes it too easy to borrow money, and money just gets thrown around, and it makes inflation happen. It makes prices go up and all sorts of stuff, because people can just borrow money to buy anything they want. Not only just like necessities, I'm talking about things like investment and loans and houses and things like that. So interest rates went really, really low around the world, and people started throwing money at everything they could. But because like the 2008 crash and all the layoffs that happened were responded to by a lot of companies by just not replacing those jobs or automating away a lot of jobs, or replacing them with jobs that are way more precarious and don't pay as much, or gig economy jobs or things like that. The economic growth just didn't come back as fast. It was very slow. So even with like if you think about it, like driving a car, they basically floored the gas, but they didn't accelerate very fast. And so things like they had no incentive to raise interest rates again to slow things down, because they were basically gunning as hard as they could, but it wasn't growing very fast. The thing though that it did have a lot of interesting effects that sort of define the last 15 years and are going to sort of be the definition of a lot of the problems that we're going to deal with in the near-term future, which is that really low interest rates meant that you could borrow money very easily, and you could borrow a lot more money than you normally could. That resulted in things like in America, for example, a lot of angel investors, like people who invest in new businesses, were able to leverage a lot more venture capital into various enterprises, and with a longer runway to success, which meant that they could invest in business ventures that might not be profitable for many, many years, but with the long-term idea that they could be successful in the end. And at that time, that was also when like your Ubers and stuff were starting to show up with this business model based on the idea that you go really, really cheap and you operate at a loss for a period of time until you basically destroy the market that you're trying to move into and take over it entirely. Then you can raise prices again. And that model was what everyone was trying to do, which meant that you ended up with like a bunch of businesses that in any other economic period would make no sense, and yet getting a ton of money to keep going, and with very little expectation for profits at the end of the day. And this is why like you ended up with like 16 streaming services, and all of them making these very expensive TV shows that to try and corner the market on streaming, but not being able to ever be fully successful. And now that interest rates are going up, all of those investors are looking for something that is more guaranteed to return profit. And so a lot of those streaming services are going to have to like cut back on the prestige TV shows that they're funding at like crazy rates. This is why like all of the prestige TV shows are getting canceled right now. The other aspect, too, is that in Canada, specifically, the low interest rates resulted in a runaway inflation effect on housing prices. So people saw like people started paying more and more for houses, which made the impression that houses were this like growth investment. So everyone started buying into the market and taking out humongous loans to live in houses that existed. And also people who had lots of money could afford to build and buy a whole lot of properties in the hope that they could rent them out, or they could sell them at like a sort of, for gain. And so not only did housing like work as like a thing for people to live in, but also they became a hot investment commodity. And that led to the prices increasing even more. And it was always going to be like, this is unaffordable. This is insane. This is never going to like last forever. It's just because we've dropped interest rates so stupidly low. So when everything started inflating in price after the pandemic fucked up our logistics systems, where there just wasn't enough supply for the demand as people started going back to their normal lives, but the logistics systems hadn't reasserted themselves to make up for the increased demand, things started getting really expensive. And the way that you can sort of curb that runaway price increase is to raise inflation. So if they're paying more for like loans and interest, all that kind of stuff, then they don't have as much money to spend on other things. And so the other things are supposed to lower in price. That's the idea of like raising interest rates. The problem is that so many people in Canada are so like locked into these mortgages, and in mortgages that under a like more normal economic regime, they probably couldn't afford, which was sad because so few people even in the easy time could afford mortgages. So it makes it even sadder. And so like at some point that bubble was going to have to burst, but they decided to ramp it up really fast in a very short amount of time. And it caused a lot of people to panic. And now, it's so like now housing prices are on this like downward spiral. And unfortunately, this is all the shit that happens when you are looking in the face of a depression. So like if interest rates stay high, people will start investing less. They'll start holding on to their money, their liquid capital more, and everything will slow down. And you'll end up with an economy that has very few jobs and not that much not that much prosperity. And that could be the next few years could be like the beginning of like a legit depression. So it's like not even that. And at the moment, a lot of the tools that we developed to combat the last depression, like adjusting interest rates and going into like public spending and stuff like that, have either had been ideologically taken off the table. Like if this was a time before the 1970s and we were in a situation like this would be a time for governments to go into debt and to spend a bunch of money to jumpstart the economy. But because now conservatives, like now neoliberalism is the dominant ideology, the idea of going into massive amounts of debt to jumpstart the economy with public investment is not it's not a viable option anymore. So they won't do it. It will be political suicide. Two is that a lot of the tools and knobs that they do have to sort of control the economy don't work anymore. Like ever since 2008, the like low interest rates just had to stay low because it was the only thing that was keeping the economy moving at all. And now they tried raising it to combat inflation, and it caused like this huge downward spiral on like leading towards an economic depression, kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid that we put on after 2008 and not really having tools to fix that. And like in 2009, 2010, they were warning us that like interest rates are super low, but the economy is not recovering. This is not a sustainable option. If we run into another economic crisis, we're not going to have anything that we can do about it. And that is sort of the situation that they are in now. And so that means that they're probably going to have to explore new things. And that's probably one of the reasons I imagine the liberals are exploring a basic income program, which makes sense because I think that a lot of the things that happened is that a lot of jobs are just going to disappear. Not only adding that, but also the fact that like right around the time this depression is starting, ChatGPT is becoming like a mainstream thing. And now that we're getting past the hype cycle of it, it's we're into the sort of pit of despair. Eventually, we're going to kind of come out the other end, and there is going to be a lot of places where ChatGPT is going to replace a lot of labor, and that means that there's going to be a lot more situations where there's just not jobs for people to do. They just don't exist anymore. And so a basic income program is like the only thing that's going to keep us from having like a mass homelessness crisis in a lot of ways. So that is like the general run of it. And so we're dealing with the fact that like they're trying to figure out how they can take it back. And so there's some rumors that interest rates might lower next year, or at least they will stop going up, which would be nice because like I'm not looking forward to having my monthly mortgage payments go up by like $3,000 a month when I get my mortgage refinanced in a few years. But yeah. I feel like a weirdo as a homeowner who wants your house to lose value. Your house gained $200,000 in value. Meanwhile, a lot of your friends have moved away because they can't afford to live here. Yeah, that is true. In 2008, the sizes of food got smaller to make it seem like prices didn't go up. They never went back. It feels like a one-way path. Yeah, it does. Because there's also like, if you want to like go with the Karl Marx angle of it, there's always a diminishing rate of return. Our economy is getting more efficient. We're able to make more stuff with less labor every single day. And that is the nature of like, of economics. And also like capitalists are always trying to look for ways to shave off more money for less labor. And so that is always going to result in the fact that there's less money for people to buy things. So there's always going to be this falling rate of return on everything. And there's no stabilizing that under capitalism unless you do like serious public interventions, sometimes to the point where you can't really call it capitalism anymore. That's things like rent control and like price controls and stuff like that. Which is also messy in a capitalist system, because if you put like a price control on something, like if you say milk can't be more than $1 a liter or something like that, then what'll happen is that people's like demand for milk won't change, or will like if milk becomes if its price doesn't reflect its its supply and demand, what'll happen is you're either going to have so much milk because it's too expensive and no one can afford it, and it'll just like stock up in huge numbers, or there will be an overconsumption of milk, and then there will be like a global shortage of milk. And so this is not like that is so like price controls can also be kind of wonky under like a neoliberal framework. Because it turns out that using markets to determine who gets to have or not have things is not a great system. And yeah, some of the ways that people handled that is they did stuff like buy milk off farmers for a price so that they could just keep producing and not have to worry about losing profits. But then you end up with like America, where they had cheese caves because they kept buying extra milk off the market so that prices could still stay high enough so that farmers could still make a living. But then the government ended up being on the hook for tons and tons of milk, and then they turned it all into cheese and put it in caves, or turned it into really low quality cheese and gave it to like marginalized communities. Yeah, so where this all goes, I don't know. I feel like basic income, given the ideologies at play, might be the best outcome at the moment. Just because like it's a band-aid on the capitalist system, but unfortunately it's like all of the kind of tools that, you know, capitalist governments have allowed governments to have to be able to steer the economy to the degree that they can. Basic income would be one of them. The only thing though is that they would then have to make sure that it doesn't like result in like every like if you get $1,000 a month or something like that, every landlord being like, well, your rent just went up by $1,000 a month. Isn't that weird? So to see where that, like, there are ways to handle that, but because essentially if you handle it properly, like with like, you know, controlling rent prices and bills and stuff like that, you effectively are having a downward flow of money where taxes being taken from the wealthy are being handed to everybody else, which is great. That's a redistribution of wealth in a good direction. But we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Felt the detail that they needed to put the cheese in caves specifically. It makes sense. Cheese, like to age cheese, to keep cheese in a, like cheese can stay stable for many, many years if you keep it in like a cool, dry, like area where it doesn't have a lot of access to outside air. So a cave is kind of the perfect way to do it. In fact, a lot of like fancy cheeseries in like Europe and stuff like that have caves that they used for aging their cheese. So it is kind of like the perfect place where there's a lot of space that has that controlled temperature that you need to maintain cheese. Yeah, so, and we'll also see too, because the other thing that is also probably going to exacerbate the need for something like a basic income is the fact that, and I know that everyone's gonna get mad at me because I'm like the one person on BreadTube who thinks that AI is good, apparently, and so it's just like, also, artificial intelligence technology is going to mature over the next few years, and while it's just being used for like plagiarizing essays and making weird pictures. It's going to be not too long. Like, I know people who work in the field of AI. It's not too long before they are going to be using it for a lot of different logistical purposes that are going to very much disrupt the amount of labor that they need and is going to result in a lot of people being out of work. It's not going to like replace all work like people think it will, but there is a lot of work that it could replace, and replace just as well, if not better. If we like lived in a socialist economy, we would be celebrating the fact that we are further free from like, you know, the drudgery of many of these jobs, like, you know, grant writing and reports and evaluating like legal texts and stuff. But unfortunately, it's going to result in a lot more misery. And a basic income program might at least numb that a little bit. Yeah. I see the talk in the chat is going about self-driving cars. That definitely is one of those things that like, I think that like, oh boy, there's two paths I want to go down. There is the path that everyone talks about, which is that, it is the classic case of an overpromised and underdelivered technology. I feel like nobody can deny that like, That like I remember videos from like 2015 of like CGP Grey saying that all cars are going to be driving themselves by 2020, and we're nowhere close to that. But I will say that in the sort of failing to like result in like the fully autonomous self-driving cars, which will probably be a very, very long way away. There's just way too many edge cases and environmental factors that are going to cause a problem. I think we're going to end up with like autonomous vertical takeoff and landing drones before we're going to end up with self-driving cars, where like you would just like get an Uber, but your Uber is a quadcopter or something. But I do think that you are much more likely to see what we are seeing now, which is that all that technology to develop self-driving cars is resulting in making the act of driving a lot easier. Like if you buy a modern car today, you don't have to know how to parallel park. You have what's called like super cruise control, where you can change lanes and it takes care of all of that stuff without you having to worry about it. There's and like all sorts of other like sensors being added to reduce collision detection, or like to have collision detection and all that kind of stuff. It's getting like the act of driving in a more modern car is getting a lot easier and safer. And I will say that like the fully autonomous self-driving car might be a long ways away, but the technology they're developing to do it has markedly improved cars as a technology. So drones have airspace issues. True, but that's a regulatory problem. That's not a technology problem. Regulatory problems can be solved easily. Technology problems can't. But yeah, self-driving cars probably aren't happening anytime soon. Likely. I think that it's going to be it's going to be a lot more gradual than people thought it was. Because we're going to get to the point where like we are like, you know, where the percentage of mental power we are using to drive is going to change. And it'll probably approach zero, but may be a long time before it gets to absolute zero. But I can see a time in the not too distant future where like the majority of driving that you do is pretty automated. Like changing lanes, figuring out like turn signals, like watching out for like there's a lot of like driving involves a lot of little things, but there are a lot of parts of driving that can be automated away. And as more and more generations of cars that are developing this technology come out, you're going to end up with cars that are more and more like not self-driving, but definitely highly assisted driving. I mean, yeah, it would also be better if we had trains, but in some ways you also have to just be like, this is the technology that's being invested in. And also I think that self-driving technology could be implemented also in public transit to a great benefit as well. So like bus systems. There's a lot of automation in bus systems that could make driving a bus for a living much safer and easier and make the bus system work a lot better. The term you're looking for is level 3 self-driving. Yeah. I think like we already have like level 1, or like some of the nicer cars might have like level 2 self-driving, but, because keep in mind that this isn't just Tesla who's doing this. In fact, Tesla is sort of the showy, shitty version. Tesla cars are awful, but like while Tesla has been like making everybody think that car technology is like nowhere close to where it needs to be and that it's all shitty because Elon Musk is a grifter, other companies, like car companies that have been making cars for like some of them like 100 years now, have been working on R&D and using the technology to build like the next generation of like electric vehicles and self-driving technology. So like you're not going to see Tesla make a safe self-driving car, but you're definitely going to see some extremely interesting features in like your Fords and your Chevrolets and your Toyotas and all those. Level 3 is where we're at right now. Tesla says they're level 4 when they're still killing people. Level 5 is no wheel. Okay. I honestly, I haven't followed self-driving car technology super close, but like I do think that there was like an expectation that we were going to be at like fully autonomous cars that don't even need steering wheels in like 5 years, when like that was unrealistic. But in striving to hit that, we definitely did improve cars by like a lot, and self-driving technology is improving at a pretty impressive rate. So I love that I'm going to have to just live with the fact that I'm going to be ostracized by left-wing Twitter and like social media because I'm the only person who, when looking at this technology, like actually looked at it and looked at its implications and refused to just be like, well, thing bad, therefore I cannot look at it in any other way except to say how bad it is. Which I think is very short-sighted. I feel like Elon Musk set a lot of expectations that will hold back a lot of technologies for a long time. Most automation would be less necessary if we didn't live in a very dumb capitalist society. I mean, to an extent, there is truth to that. I'm not going to lie, but also there's a lot of automation that is building that also would just be like a really great way for us to limit the drudgery of everyday life. Like ChatGPT, for example. ChatGPT is like a system that allows you to produce text in a lot of ways that, like, say in the past might like fill in, like, because there's a lot of writing that people need to do that isn't like, you know, creative pouring out of your soul onto the page writing that it can do very easily, and will save people a lot of pointless paperwork. Like writing applications for grants, or like, you know, summarizing documents for précis, and like a lot of little things like that. And like, it's really good at that kind of stuff. I would argue it also works as a writing tool, but I say that it's not in the way that if you say that too loudly, people make assumptions about what that means, and they are wrong. Because you definitely can't use just like a ChatGPT to like write your essay for you, but you can use ChatGPT to help you write your essay the way that you want it to be. And it does pretty well. I would love if... Why is there an 8-bit Addams Family tune? I'm listening to a playlist I found of stream-safe Halloween music. So that's what we got. I was planning on at some point making a Nebula course on all of the ways that I've used myriad AI tools to help me be better at researching, better at fact checking, better at writing stronger text, and come out as a better writer, researcher, and just like video producer in general. But I have been terrified to actually make said thing, because it would essentially have me crucified on the altar of people who have just had a reactionary hatred of these technologies. So I have been a little muted on wanting to talk about that stuff. You'd watch that? That's good. I'm glad somebody would. But I'm hoping that maybe, because it seems like maybe like the reactionary backlash about like, You should play your strongest stream. Send me a. Do you have like a link to it or something that I can use? I'll play your music. But yeah, at this point, like, I'm just like, no, thank you. It seems like maybe we're hitting the point where like the immediate reactionary attack on all things that are artificial intelligence is blunting a little bit, and we might be entering into like people actually learning how these tools work and realizing that they can be very, very good at making stuff that if you use them properly and actually take the time to understand them. But I don't think we're out of the time where the stigma's fully gone away yet. So it is a tool. People should learn how to use it. Correct. And I will say that there are people who I can't say for sure. I'm not going to name any names, but what I will say is that when you become very familiar with how ChatGPT writes and you give it certain instructions and you can kind of see the things that come out of it, you can start to get a feel for its writing style if you don't put like a lot of work into massaging it and getting it to hit the voice that you're looking for. And I will say, I have watched several YouTube videos by like pretty big creators that are not like, dude bro sort of like shitty creators, but like creators that like, we all love and respect. And there's a few of like those chat GPT-isms definitely in the script. So I also think that there's more people than I would guess who are experimenting with it and just keeping it on the DL because they know of how spicy it is to talk about. Does your link show up? Your link does not show up. Are you on our Discord or something? Can you just email it to, can you email the link to stepback@nebula.tv? I can get it that way. You don't like the idea of something or someone endlessly collecting data and info that not really community accountability. Sure. I agree with that. I would say that what like AI like language model training and collecting data are not necessarily the same thing. Like it's pretty tough to impossible to like say to make a language model just spit out the entirety of a text that it has been trained on. That's not really how it works. If you really want, like what it does is it takes all of the data that it every time it trains on a new piece of data, it uses it to adjust like 10 like or billions and billions of like 8-digit integers and like adjust them for like weights for like if like for this, then this, and like all those kinds of things. There's like multiple layers and levels of like these 8-digit integers. And then it like feeds that analysis through noise, like random noise, to then produce the thing that comes out of it. So it's like that more or less. All right. Shall we listen? Shall we have a little music sesh? I'll put the playlist. I'll put the Halloween playlist on pause, and we'll. All right.
One degree hotter than it was before. The people in charge have locked the door, barring everyone from anyone who'll do anything about it. We're the greatest nation I've ever seen, but the history I've read is quite obscene, with every great leap forward paid for by the blood of the working class. So go step outside and look into the night. There the stars too have got my way home, 'cause the sky is blood red and they've all gone to bed by the light of the screens on the phone. Please wake up. people in charge from the start to ensure we don't dance nothing but the wage slave do-si-do. They take the water, they steal the
It's like a
land,
patter
take
song thing
everything their
going on
hands
there.
can find while leaving precious nothing for what's left of the starving masses. So go step aside and look into the night, there are no stars to help guide my way home. Cause the sky is blood red and they've all gone to bed by the light of the screens on their phone. So with tears in my eyes and my heart growing 3 sides, I get up, raise my fist to the air. Not this time I declare, cause we will fight despair as we all get together as one. Please wake up.
It sounds a little bit like God, I can't remember what the name of that song was from like 10 years ago.
So I'd go step aside and look into the night, there are no stars to help guide my way home. Cause the sky is blood red and they've all gone to bed by the light of the screens on their phone. So with tears in my eyes and my heart growing 3 sides, I get up, raise my fist to the air. Not this time I declare, cause we will fight despair as we all get together as one. Please wake up.
I dig that song. Kind of gives me like, I don't know if this is like an insult or not, but it gives me like a sort of like a Mumford and Son type vibe, but also with radical lyrics and such. I dig it. I'm down. Got a bit of a patter song thing going on. I'm down. Okay. How will we answer some questions? Yeah, no worries, Yemit. That was a good song. All right. We got some actual questions here. What do I think of saying that the arc of history is long and tends towards justice? Do I think it's true? That's a bit of an interesting question. I feel like that's overly deterministic. I think that I don't think that necessarily is true. I think that we've seen a lot of like backlashes to know that things. I mean, it's not true either, I would say, because things have like, we do a lot less like straight up murdering of people than we did like, 200 years ago or whatever. So there's like, I would say that maybe the arc of history is long and bends towards justice, but I think that we very overly estimate how like that arc is very, very long, like, generationally long. And it's also because there's a lot of things that are bad ideas that you can't really get rid of unless the people who believe it just die of old age. And I think that there's like this is an actual phenomenon in physics, but it's true in like, I think a lot of ideas where there's just a lot of bad ideas that very powerful and entrenched people hold that will not go away until that generation is just dead because they refuse to give it up. All right. Next we got, today I finished the 2nd season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and now that I've actually seen an adult Gorn in the modern style, all I can ask is how the hell did Kirk wrestle one of them? Oh, man. Yeah. They're going to have to do a lot of explaining to figure out how the Gorn got to, like, the silly guy in a suit from, like, the 60s. 75% of the stream and only now answering the questions. Yeah, that's how we roll. I've been getting fewer and fewer questions these days, so I try to ad lib to fill in the space, especially when Mia's not around, though. Such a good episode, yeah. The Gorn stuff, setting up the Gorn as like this really scary alien threat in Strange New Worlds has been pretty good. It's been pretty satisfying. And like, just Strange New Worlds in general, season 2 got very unhinged and very fun. Including, yeah, the musical episode, which was so solid. All right. Hydra Centipedes wants to know what my take is on all the productivity or second brain community. I like it. I mean, okay. That's a very surface way to say it, but I have definitely wanted, like, there's like, again, I have two minds to think about it. One, I do hate that we have a relentless productivity culture where we're all being driven to be as productive as possible to the extent of our own limits to make money for other people. That sucks. Though I find myself irreparably drawn to that kind of content because I really like new ways of figuring out how to improve the way that I do things, to do more with less work, and to have like ways of like storing and recalling information that's easier for someone who has a fairly flawed memory. So I kind of enjoy that shit. The second brain, for example, the Tiago Fuerte, something like Tiago Forte, I think is his name, who wrote the second brain thing, is like a whole system of like storing and recalling information based on like a bunch of stuff that like physicists and stuff like that have done over the years. And I think it's a pretty useful book, especially if you're someone who does a lot of knowledge work in your life. And like, yeah, so like there is that. But like also like a lot of things, it has fallen into grift culture, and everybody is now trying to sell you their productivity course or sell you their productivity thing, or take their course or get their coaching or whatever. And that stuff's boring as hell. Is that related to that book thing that you told us, once told us, and then I bought and then I did not like? Well, I guess it's not for everyone. I read Second Brain and I thought it was very entertaining. I found it very useful for the kind of stuff that I do. For me. But of course, your mileage may vary, but I like that there's a lot of different people who are exploring different ways to be more productive, even if for your own sake. I sometimes I like productivity systems because it lets me actually make room for the other things that I like to do in my life. Like sometimes productivity is useful for for also making art and all sorts of other fun things. All right. I bet this is the guy who gave me a negative comment on Twitter a little while back. Should the left move away from referring to Israel as a settler colonial nation? It seems to me that using the same term for Israel as Canada or America denies the fact that Israeli people have a historical and cultural tie to the land, just as Palestinians do. Israel sucks in so many ways that I think using a term that denies this claim distracts from the fact that they're just awful to their own citizens, let alone the oppression that they visit on occupied Palestinians. I disagree. I disagree that it is not a useful term. Settler colonialism is a process, and settler colonialism as a historical process is very useful for understanding what's happening in Israel and Palestine, because what it is that when you have a group of people trying to take land from another group of people that have less power, they will make treaties, break treaties, and all of that ratchets in the direction of taking more and more land away from people and sequestering the survivors into smaller and smaller enclaves. This process is like the history of colonization. And while you can make said argument for that the Israelis have a historical claim to the region, which is a much more complicated question, and one that I'll probably try to answer in my video that comes out in January. And it's not as cut and dry as people think it is. That still doesn't. That still subtracts from the fact that this is still a historical process that is taking it is still a process that results in a retired couple from New Jersey moving into the property that belonged to a person whose family lived on that land for thousands of years. That is the thing that happens. All sorts of other historical arguments aside, there's nothing not settler colonial about that. And yeah, it also has a lot to do with the concept of nation states, and nation states as a concept are troublesome in a lot of ways, and in ways that I probably need to do a lot more reading to elaborate on. But yeah, it has, and also it's just like you're talking about, like whether you're talking about cultural continuity or like biological continuity, like a lot of like the ancient Israelites that would have that like link are closer related to modern day Palestinians than like the sort of the Ashkenazi diaspora that moved in starting in the sort of late 1940s. That is that's a whole other kettle of fish to talk about. Plus, there's the fact that like there is white supremacy in Israel. Like, for example, like there's like the right of return has been very selectively used, and there is a very different experience if you are, say, a Jewish person who has come from Ethiopia, or whether you're an Arab Jewish person. Your experiences in Israel have been very different than, say, your like usually like your majority, like the Ashkenazi people who have immigrated from either the United States or Europe. That I will say. So that is that. When you call them a colonial, when you call them a colonial nation, de facto states that Israel doesn't have the right to exist as a Jewish state. That is a much more complex question, because I also have my qualms with the two-state solution, and also the idea that that there should be mono-ethnic or mono-religious states where the governing party is ruled by a main like ethnicity or religion. And that probably should be true of all countries, because that leads to situations like what's happening in Israel right now. And that and also like the sort of two-state solution also results in, as it exists in the processes work now, results in Palestine essentially like living in abject horror, because like cut off from all major resources, and being like destined to a forever future of poverty and down, like what's it called, downward slope of existence. And that really the only sustainable long-term future is a secular single state. But that is, again, a much more tricky conversation that does not fit well on a stream, because you have to have multiple lines of evidence and discussion about that from multiple perspectives that I do not contain at the moment. So there's that. All right. The Industrial Revolution is renowned for how it forced masses of people to move to the city and live in small multi-person slums and work in extremely dangerous factories for poor wages. I know a bit about how it ended up there, but not how it got better. How exactly did this change the working and living conditions we have today? How did it change to the working and living conditions we have today? Mostly the labor movement. The labor, like organized labor in those cities, forced better regulations on the safety of those workplaces. And furthermore, the sort of mid-century increase in standard of living meant that those like poor slums were they're gentrified essentially. And so a lot of those workers who were able to, through organized labor, pull a more livable wage, were able to create more living conditions that were more amenable for them to live in. So that's that. That's the main thing of it. And of course, that is a trend that is reversing as lower labor power. It's reversing in some ways because lower labor power has resulted in people having worse and worse living conditions. But it's also changed because our economy has moved away from industrialization, from outsourcing a lot of that industrial labor to developing world countries where they now live in shitty multi-person slums and work at extremely dangerous factories for poor wages, while we do service sector jobs where we have to while we still get paid shitty, but we're not working in these like dangerous, dirty contexts and doing things for the rich people instead of making things for the rich people. Alrighty. Hi, Tristan. You mentioned running out of stuff to talk about on stream, so I thought I would put forward a suggestion in the vein of your win segment. Why not spend some time each stream talking about a different part of the dream, the world we want our grandchildren to live in, and what it is like day to day? What structures are there? What is it like to work in? What objects do and do not exist? It doesn't have to be a research and definitive, just ideas, vibes, and a lot of disclaimers acknowledging that. I know you often talk about this anyway, but having a segment that is more positively focused on what we can hope for might be nice. It's not a bad idea. Yeah. I could... I'm kind of doing that with this whole freaking short story project that I'm trying to work on. The main part is that, like, I need to articulate it. I, like, have this whole theory that, like, this is, like, the thing that I'm, like, sitting on about, like, how humanity needs to, like... humanity needs to realize that every human depends on every other human to survive, and that we sort of all have, and that the inverse of that is true, and that is that, you know, the world depends on you in part to keep the rest of the world running, and that we all essentially have a duty to look out for each other, and to also make sure that that concentration of power is always resisted. So that involves that is the same for us. So like, that is why, like, my better future involves a much more locally focused society where we do a lot more things at a small and a small and local scale, and more individualized to the needs and desires of the people who live in it. Because one of the big issues I think of the world we live in is when an organization gets too big and it's able to abstract the people who live in it, it becomes a matter of calculus to do things that will, like, you know, remove from their quality of life. So I personally would love it if the people who decided what people would be affected by had to know the faces and names of the people that they were going to do it to. And that is sort of limited by Dunbar's number, the amount of people that you can reasonably have some form of, like, living relationship with. And to me, that means, like, a very small number of people. Does that mean that we can't do big things and stay and, like, federate into larger and larger projects where we, you know, voluntarily work together? No, I think that is definitely something I also would like to have, because I too like infrastructure and medical systems and power and science and those kinds of things. And that is definitely a thing that, like, a small community can't do. They still won't care. Well, that's a very bleak way to look at things. I'm going to put my anti-doomer action thing here. My guess, though, is that if you are in a situation, if things are kept small too, if there are, you know, horrible people who somehow manage to arrange horrible things to happen, at least the scale of it is kept small enough that it can be easily, like, taken care of and intervened with by the other people who have the duty to keep society a better and a good place for people. That is part of the human duty. Because tyrants suck and need to be opposed. And it's better if they're small enough to be opposable, rather than, like, you know, able to weaponize the entire industry of millions of people and weaponize it against people. Because, and that's also a thing, this is why I call it a duty, like a thing that we have to always be on guard for, because it's another part of my like philosophy of life or philosophy of politics, is that we as social creatures have a tendency towards deferring to authority. And that is always going to make it way easier for us to lean towards centralization and hierarchy in a way that is detrimental to our existence as a species. And so we need to kind of always be on alert and be ready to stop anything like that before it gets too strong. Let's see. Do you have house assemblies / councils where the residents of the apartment building make decisions on repairs and stuff? Some do, not all, and definitely not enough. But I think some places do, yeah. But like, for example, like one thing that would make it, like, by like the numbers that I would go by, you would need to have like an apartment building would have to have several communes in it. Because like if a building had like, 30 stories or whatever, and like Dunbar's number is only like 300 people or something like that, you're going to have more than 300 people living in that building. And so you're going to have multiple communes, but they will be federated because they live in the same building, and the effects of them, just like how in our society, the effects of like one society still affect, like the effects of one street still affect the other. So you have to always be in communication and connection with each other. And still have like, joint responsibility over shared resources and places. So that's always going to be an aspect of human organization. Unless you're like an anarcho-capitalist or something. But, so that is also, yeah, part of it. Am I familiar with Sociocracy as a vehicle for accomplishing direct consensus-based democracy? No, I am not. Sociocracy is a governance system just like democracy or corporate governance methods, best suited for organizations that want to self-govern based on the values of equality. Some people refer to sociocracy as dynamic self-government or simply dynamic governance. Okay. Well, I'll have to look into this. But I mean, that sounded at the surface like something really nice, and so I'll have to like take a look more into this. But it sounds pretty compelling. But that's that'll have to be something that I talk about more once I've actually read stuff. Let's see. Oh boy. Man, my throat is like raw for talking for 2 hours straight. I wonder what I'm going to do after this. Probably work out. I haven't worked out yet today. And then in 2 hours, I have to go pick up my little boy from daycare. Because we're going to have a Friday night. Kelly's going out with her friends, so just the two of us. We're gonna order shawarma. We're going to maybe, I don't know, we're gonna play because he's like a baby. But knock back a few brewskis, you know. That was a joke for legal reasons. I'm not going to drink beers with my baby. But I think it's going to go really well. I think it's going to be a fun night. Alrighty. We also have a gardener commune, which is comprised of multiple privately owned land plots, but there are regular meetings to discuss various matters among residents. That makes sense. That sounds fun. I can't do that because Tristan has to work. Tristan has to write a script for a video so that it can be finished by next Friday. By the way, on that note, there's not going to be a stream next week. I am traveling next Friday. I'm like, what's it called? Friday is the day of the friggin' Ancient Aliens live show in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So I'll be leaving on Friday to go to Kalamazoo, Michigan to watch the Ancient Aliens show, and then Saturday I'll be at the meetup. So no time for stream next week, sadly. Clear your calendar. You got shit to do, or you don't have shit to do anymore. Baby's first conquest of bread. Yeah. Alrighty. All right. Here's the thing. I feel like we have hit a stopping point. I really have to go to the bathroom, so I think I'm just going to wrap up a little bit early. I think we're all going to be good with that. We'll get our weekend started a little bit earlier. So, everybody, you have been amazing. You guys are so great. This has been a very fun stream. I feel like we've gone to some very great places. So, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And I will see you guys the next time we do stuff, which will be, I think, November 10th is the next stream. So, peace out, everybody.